Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for joining us on our webinar this afternoon. We are talking about development. So we have a special guest, Martin, Head of Development from Open Fifth, and we're going to do things a little bit differently today. It's going to be a little bit more of a conversation with Martin about development. So very briefly, I'm going to just remind everybody that Open Fifth is a UK-based private company that specialises in open source library software. We also do a lot of development in those communities. And on the screen here, hopefully you'll be able to see some of our webinars and what's on our mind videos that we put up on our Open Fifth YouTube channel. We've got some open source and development community discussion from Sam a couple of months ago. Martin's What's on Our Mind about the community process. And then we've also got a little highlight of our top developments over 2025. We also have a few other What's on Our Mind, and I'm going to be honest, the Jonathan's Why is a bug was my fault because I asked, why is a bug called a bug? What is a bug? Please explain it to me. And he does a brilliant job of explaining that. And then Chloe did a fantastic Aspen Discovery version of it. We're also doing a little bit more blog. So we have started our development updates that will be out every other month that talks about what developments are happening in both Koha and Aspen. And Martin celebrated 15 years and counting as a
Yay.
developer with Open Fifth. So now that I have covered the absolute basics, I'm going to hand over to Martin so he can explain to us what happens in the development process and how you can get involved with it with Open Fifth. Martin, take it away.
Well, thank you, Helen. I'm going to go through the development process as it stands inside OpenFifth. Every development starts with an idea, so that comes from you guys. It comes from chats with the account managers, support tickets, and some of those discussions that we have at customer days. So it's always quite exciting to hear what you're after and what you're interested in doing. Then the development team will have a bit of a meeting and we'll discuss those requirements and those ideas and build a bit of a draft specification. Often will involve a bit of the wider team. We've got loads of experts in OpenFifth, so sometimes it's great to have those librarians and the support staff, etc., being able to convert library speak to tech speak and back again. So that's a brilliant way of getting them involved. Once we've done that, we quite often will post our initial ideas and specification on the community forums out there, so our Bugzilla and our Jira trackers. Then finally agree on kind of an approach for how we think we're going to try and approach this development. That leads to the next sort of big internal step where you're more involved. We'll do an estimation and a quote. So that draft specification that we've written earlier will get sent to you as the customer, and this will contain both an estimate of timescales, including sort of development hours, days, and those costings. So we might well, if it's a really big piece, split that development or suggest splitting that development into a few phases, so you're not landed with a huge change in one thing and B, a huge bill in one piece. So that's quite often the case for the bigger pieces. Finally, we'll do some acceptance and scheduling. So once you've decided you'd like it doing, we'll get together with all the stakeholders and try and work out a proper timeline and how we're going to do the sign-off process, which I think is my next slide. Brill. So we'll then actually get on with the developing. So the devs will go and sit in their dark rooms and start on the coding. This may well be an individual developer, or if it's a really large project, it might well be assigned to a pair of devs, so working as a bit of a team. And as soon as they've got their first exposable piece of code written, they'll start to get back in touch and look at testing and feedback. So again, this brings both yourselves and the community into the loop. So we'll post some code, and it might go onto community sandboxes with some generic data to test against, or we might try and put it onto your test servers if you've got a test server, and then you can use some of your own data to play with and look at refining and iterating, giving us some feedback. Once you're happy with that work and you feel it's accomplishing all of your needs, we'll ask for a sign off, and that will be putting your name to the piece of work, both internally, so we know that you're happy with what we've done, and externally, showing that you're happy with the work that's been carried out, and the community knows that that's happened. So Bugzilla and Jira again for the different communities. Finally, it'll go through a quality assurance tech at the communities level. So in Aspen, that goes through Jira, and in Koha, that will go through Bugzilla. That's where we get a third party to really check out our code, and we do review other people's code as well. So it's a real give and take in the community process there, just to make sure that there's nothing we've not spotted, any last tweaks that need changing, and there's not any regressions in other people's workflows. Once we're all happy with that, we try and get it onto your production systems. So hopefully that will work and coincide nicely with a scheduled upgrade. But if not, we'll be backporting it and get it onto your systems as soon as possible. That kind of covers the development process quite nicely. So I think it's time for me to hand over to Sam to talk about how you can get those ideas to us, and how the rest of the team help.
So, Martin mentioned earlier, we've got a lot of library and archive background people working at Open Fifth, which means that a lot of this is not led by purely by IT folks, which is quite unusual in this sort of support company. And it means we do understand the pressures and needs, and even the language that you're using to express those needs, which we can then translate to our more technical people. All customers have an account manager, and at the meetings with those accounts, we often pick up on wish list items, and we will share it back to the wider team. Open Fifth invest back to the community quite a lot. We offer free development time, even if the development is being supported by some customers. We will always offer some free development time as part of that project. And if a customer has a development need, we help by discovering if that request has already been made, if it's underway, and we'll let you know what the kind of timeline is on that. Or we help find others that might be interested in that development, because often developments are shared across a few institutions. We have customers who have a development pot as part of their annual, as a way to give back to the open source communities. But we are looking at ways to engage the wider community in terms of maybe crowdfunding for development, which will allow for smaller financial commitments to go towards those shared goals, which is something we would really like to encourage. If you want to move on, Helen.
Oh, I think this is me again.
It is.
So
We're going to talk about some examples.
we are. So I wanted to share some sort of success stories that we've had over the years. Many of you won't have remembered Koha without cash management and the point of sale system. We developed this best part of 10 years ago in collaboration with Cheshire Educational Library Services. They sponsored and helped refine these specifications. So they gave us our first take on point of sale, which included adding the support for cash registers in the system, adding the first iteration of the point of sale screens, and helping to refine that initial cash up process. So the reason I'm excited about that one is that I helped develop it very early on, but it's now really been taking off over around the world, and it's used for millions of transactions daily. I know from my partners in the US, etc., it's very, very popular. And we've recently had a lot more interest in it in the UK. So we've got West Sussex Libraries and the Bi-Borough Libraries, which is Westminster and Royal Borough of Kensington and Chelsea, who are very recent customers to us, joined in 2024 and going live West Sussex-wise very early next year, who have been supporting the further development in cash management. So they've been adding support for additional fields, allowing for more complex integrations with third-party finance systems. There's been a lot of work very recently working towards a two-step cash up workflow, so refinements in the existing cash up options. And there's now some look into doing variable banking and rollover at cash up, so your money be able to be recorded as going into the next till session effectively. I'm also quite excited, and we're looking for more sponsors for continuing work in cash management, and there's been lots of talk around how could we possibly handle tax better, and how could we possibly add stock tracking. So if you've sold 50 pencils and you've got 10 left, you need to buy some more pencils for your stock. So that's all sort of exciting areas for me. Also like to talk about community engagement. So on the Aspen side of the camp, this one's a bit more in its infancy, but it's already starting to become really popular in the US and the UK. And this was an initial project by the Cuyahoga County Public Libraries. So they're a large library in the US, supported by our friends Bywater Solutions. And they came to us looking for a competitive quote on how to work on a community engagement module in Aspen. So we've carried out a large phase one piece, and that's working really well. And they're also looking at funding another phase. But more locally, we've had the Byborough Libraries and the West Sussex giving feedback on the existing community engagement work, and we've been doing some staff enrolment work and some user experience refinements and tailoring it a little bit more to the UK audiences. So that's another real success story of how that world collaboration can work.
And we've got an interesting press release if you want to read more about what that community engagement module looks like.
Because it's really interesting that everybody has a similar need, but the different parts of the world want it tweaked in their own special little way, which is why
quite exciting.
Yeah.
The American audience wanted it to be very hands-off, didn't they, and admin-free. And the UK librarians all said, no, we'd like to be involved, please. We would like to help people enroll to these things.
Yeah, it's very interesting. The US is very kind of patron driven, so they're giving opportunities and patrons enroll themselves, whereas the UK takes more of the reading challenge type approach, where they're really trying to encourage people in and do the summer reading challenges and get involved. So it's very much the maintenance comes from opposite sides, but the approach and idea at the end is very similar. Okay. Great. So I've got another couple of examples that I wanted to show off. Again, interlibrary loans. This is a big piece in Koha, and it's been around for quite a long time, but it's another piece that Open Fifth, or as we were known, PTFS Europe at the time, developed that foundations of that module, so that to really close the gap in the Koha's missing functionality. And we did that with a bit of partnership from Loughborough University and the University of Hertfordshire and University of the Arts London. They've helped us adapt for different providers. They've really helped guide that workflow improvements and how interlibrary loans should work. And then much more recently, the NHS and UK HSA have been sponsoring a lot of work to improve the user experience in interlibrary loans. And now, very excitingly, they're looking at, or they have sponsored us to work on supplier side interlibrary loans. So the ability for your library to start lending or loaning books to other libraries much more seamlessly from within Koha.
It's a big deal for libraries, is that at the moment everyone wants to save a bit of money, and the idea of being able to share in local collaborative units is really important. So we'll be able to see like a little dashboard for interlibrary loans. We'll be able to decide whether you're a provider or a supplier or just a borrower of the interlibrary loan.
Yeah, I think it's great. It's had real popularity in the Europe for a long time, but there's a real growth in its use in the USA right now. So there's a real interest in taking it to the next phases and keeping it moving forwards.
Absolutely.
My final example is a bit more hidden behind the scenes. So we added the single sign-on support to Aspen Discovery, and that was done in partnership with Glasgow Kelvin College. So that's Shibboleth and SAML, and that makes users' lives much easier and quite a lot more secure at the same time. So it just shows we can do some of the less shiny user-facing pieces very well as well. I think that was
really important for my sector, which is academic. So all of the academic libraries, they all have to have, they're usually based on Microsoft or one of these SAML like Shibboleth, and they all have to have single sign-on throughout the institution. So this is a brilliant addition.
And not all developments have to be shiny.
Some are just necessary.
Exactly.
That is very
So,
true.
just our final slide here is to remind you all that we have one more webinar for the end of the year, and that's on our festive portals. And our program for 2026 will be coming out very soon. Please keep an eye on our events page for that, but we will also be sending out information about it.